So, councillors, please, we are live, and I welcome those streaming, and I welcome the fact that my chief executive would normally be here today is in isolation as a very say loose contact. That's not the correct term. Casual contact. That sounds way better than loose contact. We don't have a loose. So we have had the council prayer this morning. I think everybody is here, so there won't be any apologies. So we'll move on from that. Item 4, the conflict of interest. Is anybody wanting to register conflicts of interest at this stage? Councillor, go get it.
I'm chair of the Sport and Recreation Trust.
Okay, thank you. And that's an agenda item today in some shape or form. We'll take note of that. Thank you. We welcome Ms. Gray, who's filling in today for the Chief Executive. And we have a number of staff in the room. Do we have staff? Do we have any changes in the confirmation of order of business that are significant? I do know there is a late item for correction to the schedule of fees and charges within the LTP. Anything else I need to be aware of?
No.
Thank you very much. Looking to the confirmation of minutes and looking for alterations and corrections. They start on page 5. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, so we might have to tell me when to stop. 34, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Any alterations or corrections? Otherwise, I'll ask somebody to so move. Councillor Belsham moving. Councillor Carter seconding. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. I'll take them separately. The second recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 9th of June be taken, read and verified as an accurate and correct record. Again, Councillor Belsham is moving. Thank you. Councillor Gordon is seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carry. Move on to item number 7, the follow-up actions from the previous meetings. And would somebody like to move they be received? And I'll take questions. Councillor Hero moving. Councillor Wilson seconding. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Any questions from regard to that? No questions? Councillor Dalgary.
Following up from, on page 21, and where we have got Mr. Tomes advised the council will receive around 4.5 million less funding from Waka Kotahi. Yes, I believe that is correct in terms of income funding, but I thought there was a further 2.5 million that'd be less capital. Is that? So I thought the total figure was 7 million.
Yes, so basically, Arno, feel free to jump in. Sorry, your question. The income we get is 4.5
yes.
Towards a programme of around 7. So what it meant was spend was going to be 7, of which we'd fund 2.5, and Katahi would fund 4.5.
I understand.
Most of the spend was CapEx.
I get it. Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Yes, thank you. And with regard to that, separate to the actions, I have taken to rural and provincial my concerns over the reduction of funding for Waka Katahi, from Waka to Katahi. And that concern has been echoed by a number of other councils and has been taken back as an action to, through LGNZ, direct back to government with regard to those concerns. Any further? In that case, I'll move forward. The Mayor's report, the table report, I'm certainly not going to read it. It's reasonably lengthy. I will take any questions around it and associated engagements. Councillor Ash.
Just a comment around spelling of a name.
Spelling of what?
A name.
Which name?
Jen to Jan.
Okay,
Jen.
sorry. However, it could have been Jan. Whereabouts in the report?
Talking about the work done with the Jan Harris, not Jen Harris.
Matt Chisholm's speech.
Okay, thank you. Take that on board. Councillor Dalgety.
Your sentence should read, I believe, fractionally over their rate increase will be fractionally over 7%, not fractionally.
Okay.
Yes.
My apologies. Next one.
Just interested in how your meeting with Linda Stewart went regarding regional relationships with NZTA.
Bear in mind that she's only weeks into a new position. So Linda was Chief Executive CEDA. She's now come into Waka Katahi as the regional contact manager. I certainly took again my concerns about the lowering of funding in that space. I think she and Waka Katahi absolutely share my view. Remember that this is a central government funding and they have to deal with what they are allocated. So they get that. I also took on board the concerns not only for our network, but for the state highway network and lack of maintenance on it. So that was a shared concern, I think would be a fair way to reflect it. We did talk about a number of things, other things such as the Mangaweka Bridge replacement. How is that proceeding? I did share my concerns around the lack of engagement really on the Taihape Napier Road. As money has dropped down in availability, essentially Waka Katahi see that as a subject they're not even really keen to even enter into discussion around designation or anything like that. I think it's that. Councillor Hero.
Just interested to, I see that you've got a meeting sorted with Judge Wainwright for a field trip to the landlocked lands in the Taihape area. Is that just continuing on the discussion around that issue?
Interesting. I'm glad you raised this. So this is a deliberate parcel of landlocked land that is separate to the whole landlocked land. We've initiated discussions around, for instance, our whākau blocks. This is a specific section of land that hasn't in the past been been part of the wider discussions. I have been directed really to be at the hearing, and as part of the hearing on the 30th, I need to undertake a tramp in on the 29th through Dockland to get there. So we'll see where it goes further. However, in terms of landlocked land in general, as you know, I've been going to the ministers and saying, look, you've promised to engage with these subjects. And as of, I think, yesterday or the day before, I got back a message from Minister Nanaya Mahuta's ministry, who has said they've decided that it is important, but they won't be the ones handling it. So it's now being passed to another ministry, and they've promised to get back to me within the near space of time. So it's frustrating because you get bounced from one sector to a next sector to a next sector, and all you do is keep chipping away. Further to that, Councillor Hero?
So I see that it says it's about a mediation day. What is the, so what does that mean for, what will the council head on? What is that? What
Okay,
does
so
that
this
actually
is,
mean?
sorry, so this is one that's come up deliberately through the land court. And this will be about a mediation in terms of what is defined as reasonable access to the block. You'll be aware of correspondence between ourselves, yourself, myself, from one particular person who wants to raise other issues with regard to that hearing. I think that the judge will rule them as being not relevant to the access hearing in front of her, I think it is. Councillor Dargu.
So just for clarity, in terms of walking in there, is that walking across privately owned farmland to get in?
Yes. So the first part of that walk is through privately owned farmland, then up through the dock estate.
Thank you.
So it will take the best part of the day. Just to walk in there and have a look and come back out. Sits well with my fitness program, I suppose. Any further questions?
If it's appropriate, I just want to say that the visit to Puterino and then afterwards to the Mungarika Bridge, I found extremely valuable from a health and safety perspective, just general knowledge. And I just wanted to thank Jess, sorry, Miss, what's her surname? Yes. Thank you. It was a fabulous day. I really appreciated it.
Absolutely agree. It was really informative. Great to see the number of councillors that turned up and engaged as well. So I echo your sentiments. Any further questions? Otherwise, I'll move on. No, look, I'll move that my report be received. Looking for seconder. Councillor Hero seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. No questions from our Chief Executive. Got to remember to glance across to you. So, thank you. We'll move to the Chief Executive's report. Are you delivering it? Pass to you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are a number of items I wish to discuss with elected members from my report. I'll just take your guidance, Your Worship, on how you wish me to flip between those points and the recommendations. Do you want me to wait until the end?
No, look, I'd deliver your report and then it's easier for us to come back with a series of questions and recommendations, but I will just do the first one. Could somebody move the reception of your report since you're giving it? Councillor Dalgetty move and Councillor Duncan seconding. Those in favour, aye. You're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Point 1, the health and safety dashboard is attached to the report. I'll take any questions that elected members may have. You will recall that the original purpose of the site visits to Mangaweka and to the Putarino landfill was on a health and safety basis, that I wish for elected members to be familiar with how we work and deal with or work with our contractors to manage safety on site. And whilst the scope of that visit proved wider, I was very appreciative that elected members could see the work that we do and the work of our contractors. So thank you for that. Point 2 and 3, I was on the statement of service performance. You may recall at last month's meeting, I asked for it to lie on the table because I wasn't satisfied with the report and the way in which the information was presented. The revised report is attached, and I'll welcome any comment on that or questions. Bear in mind that the same report has also gone to the Finance and Performance Committee meeting this morning. The fencing on the Tutainui stream, point 4, I just wish to acknowledge the Restoration Society, and we've been doing some good work with them. Despite the communication challenge we had with them regarding the bridge, myself and Arno Benedi will be meeting with Greg Carline tomorrow, and we'll be mentioning the fencing of the stream as part of that meeting with the Society tomorrow. Point 6, around the naming of the new Taihape Amenities Building. I will seek some guidance from you at this meeting when we move into discussion on how elected members may wish to, for us to look at how we name the building without actually asking for a name today, but what process would elected members like us to adopt. Point 7, the water safety plan. Interesting how the drinking water assessors have reviewed our water safety plan, but haven't given us their blessing. That is a, how do I say this? That is the way of the future. I met with the Chief Executive of Taumata Arawai on Monday as part of a small group of Chief Executives from local government. Mr. Bayfield reminded us that water safety plans in the future, once the Water Services Bill has been enacted, will not be approved by Taumata Arawai. Water safety plans are a planning function of the entity responsible for the water, be that council or some other aggregated entity in the future, and that all Taumata Arawai will do as the regulator will be to review water safety plans. And so what we're seeing in section 7.1 is really a hint of what the future looks like. And that is, as a regulator, the onus is on the person or the organisation who delivers the water to be responsible for the quality of that water. Section 8 is moderately self-explanatory. Section 9 is, you will see through the attached correspondence, it really just needs an approval from council, which I'm unable to do based on the current delegations register. And you'll see in Taihape Papakai Park, there's a move to have an ability for donations to be made. And my recommendation asks you to look at whether you would approve that to be a function that is directed directly to the charitable trust. That's all I wish to talk about, Your Worship, but I'm open to questions.
If we go back, any questions on the first 1, 2, 3, including the update of the statement of performance? No. Any questions around the fencing of the Tutainui stream and that boundary? Councillor Dalgetty.
I'm just interested around that it's New Zealand, one of New Zealand's most degraded streams. I'm just wondering, yeah, where do we source that information, and can we find out a bit more about that?
I would point you towards Arno on that one in terms of the source of that information.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think the reference to that is in the context of the stream drying out in summer. So there's no national flow in summer. The only flow in the stream is the treated wastewater. So in comparison with other streams in the country, it performs really poorly, but it is because it completely dries out in summer. That would be the main reason for the comment.
Councillor Dalgety, if you would like, I'd be happy to put you in contact with the Restoration Society to look at their work. You may recall that elected members have, as part of the LTP, have guided us to enter into an MOU, and I'd be happy to discuss the MOU and the purpose of that group's work, should you wish.
Thank you. I'm hugely in favour of this group, and yeah, and I'm just would be interested. I've heard snippets around the bridge. Are you able to enlighten to us what actually happened there?
Yes, I can. It was resolved many months ago, or late 2020, that resolved by council for staff to erect a bridge to cross the spillway of the dam, but that bridge needed certain specifications to cope not only for foot traffic, but light vehicles in terms of quad bikes and people on horses. So that required a considerable engineering design. As you can imagine, the weight of that is far greater than just an ordinary human footbridge. It was agreed that the society was to install a temporary bridge, and the communication between us was poor. And it so happened that the temporary bridge was installed just prior to the installation of the permanent bridge, done by council, just in a matter of less than a few weeks difference between the two. Both parties acknowledged we could have communicated better. I spoke with Greg Carline on that issue, and we agreed, and he wrote I wrote a piece onto council's website and onto Facebook, and Greg commented favourably on that. We have agreed that we wish to work well together, and I think there is absolutely goodwill between us and the society, but we just erred on this one, and we both take 50% blame for that.
Thank you.
I would add to that I've also been party to those discussions between myself and Greg Carline, etc. There's an amicable position that has been reached. So,
before we carry on, would it be okay if we just note that the request for Councillor Dalgety to be informed of the MOU, etc., in closer detail, if that's
certainly. In terms of 5, the roading maintenance one, this came out of several possible requests, but was one that I followed up with you. The question I'd have is, we have a contract with, for instance, Higgins with regard to road maintenance. So if they sublet that contract to another party, who then sublet further again, subcontract further again, so we're now 2 or 3 stages removed from our contract. First of all, we have a process of making sure that people are qualified to be able to work on our networks per se. Does this process allow for that?
I'll let Arno respond in a little more detail for that specific question, Your Worship. I was remiss in not actually mentioning point 5. I did have it in my notes in front of me, but I skipped over it. I'm sorry. What the paragraph 5.1, I want the information I wanted to get to elected members is firstly that if there is a quality issue, that any subsequent repair that's done is not done at ratepayer cost. That's the first point, and I understand elected members have fielded contact from members of the public who have asked that very question. So I wish to reiterate that. Secondly, on the issue of quality, I have asked my staff to increase their view of quality and the amount of rework that is required. And there's also a request you made of me, Your Worship, which I'm respectful of. And I totally agree with that. We shouldn't be here to be inspecting and asking rework if the quality standards are specified in our contract. So if I could ask Arno just to continue to specifically answer your question, which was around subcontractors of subcontractors.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely correct. So we have a contractual relationship with one contractor. And in that relationship, we hold them responsible for all of the bits that we want them to achieve. So that's quality assurance, that's health and safety, that's all of it. How they then choose to deliver on those services is really up to them. But the responsibility stays with them. So our contractual relationship with them will hold them responsible for all of those things. So you would imagine that their contractual relationship with a subby and the subby with another one is amongst them, but ultimately we hold them responsible for all of it.
Is it follow up to that? Is it concerning that there'd been this, two stages removed type stage with this?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure if that is the case. We're still trying to figure out exactly what went on there and how it was outsourced. But if it is more than twice, as long as we pay what was agreed for the services that's delivered to us, and as long as those services are delivered on the quality that we want and all the rest, it's really up to them.
I'm getting a couple of looks around the table. This came out of repairs to footpath. It's on Cuckoo Street, Taihape. Okay, thank you. Any further with regard to 5? 6, the naming of the new Taihape's amenities building. Councillor Hewlett.
I'd like to know. I'd like to introduce something new into this, specifically around that. And I'm not sure how I need to do that.
We'll see where we roll.
So, at our recent visit to Putarino, I'd spoken to a few of the councillors that had turned up that day about a new opening that's happening in Taihape to do with the rebuild of the Taihape fire station and a cultural component that they're looking at introducing into that whole rebuild. And I'd like to know whether or not it could be something that the Rangitiko District Council may consider, given that we're looking at having a new rebuild of the Taihape amenities build.
Yeah, potentially the two are different because the Taihape Memorial Park one, we are the owner.
Yes.
And the naming rights would sit with ultimately with the owner.
Yeah.
With the fire station, we can suggest and make reference to FENS that they should consider a similar sort of process, but we can't direct them to it.
So this has got nothing to do with, so what it's got to do with is not about the naming of the building. So that's why it's slightly different. What I'm asking is whether or not council would consider one of the things that they're doing is looking at introducing a whole another side of a cultural component into to be part of that build. So the cultural component, I'm asking whether or not council would consider that cultural component. If you want me to tell you about it, I can, but so the cultural component that I'm talking about is that we got the Taihape fire rebuild, the fire station rebuild, when they came to us to talk about it. One of the things that they were looking at was potentially putting in what's called a Modi stone. And so a Modi stone is something that is like a life force in a number of, I would say that pretty much all whare tūpuna would have a Modi stone under it. It could be a stone, it could be anything, to be honest. And so in my mind, because I was part of that process and had attended that, it's kind of made a jump for me straight off, because the Taihepe, the amenities build is a brand new building. What they're looking at is a brand new build, absolute brand new build. It's not something big. And I'm just wondering whether or not this council has an appetite for including that cultural practice within this new building, with the Taihepe amenities. So I'm just asking that, can that be put on the table? Do we have an appetite to do that sort of thing? It wouldn't necessarily cost anybody, it wouldn't necessarily cost any money to do it. But just to be able to, just to know that I've at least put it on the table to see whether or not anyone's interested.
I think certainly council would be interested in having the discussion. So an action that's required coming out of this meeting, maybe for council staff to work with the project managership around what options council could put in front of them for that process to happen. Would that meet with your needs?
Well, at the end of the day, it's what everyone, I'm putting it on the table to us. Just
Councillor Wilson, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Wilson.
I was just wondering if Councillor Hero could perhaps circulate to councillors, even if it's offline, the significance, because I'd like a greater understanding. From what you've just told me, it sounds wonderful, but I wouldn't mind a greater understanding of how that all, the significance of it would be appreciated.
I mean, in a number of cultures, this has been common practice. If you go to early England, for example, of all things, dead cats were put into walls. Very common. In that period, very common. I'm not advocating that for a moment. I'll go Councillor Gordon and take comment.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I completely support the concept. When Councillor Hero introduced it to me the other day, I thought, wow, this seems like a no-brainer to be doing this sort of thing. I would have thought that given the number of new builds that we have potentially and have been happening in the new district with respect to council, I wonder if, Mr. Mahana might be pulling together some sort of policy and, some sort of document as a bit of a guiding principle for council. I'd see that as a positive process.
Yeah. Yes.
The project management team and taking the advice and suggestions regarding cultural practices and best practice.
Just when you're speaking from the back benches, you may have to come closer to the recording devices to be able to be heard.
Oh, thank you. Just to say that on behalf of the project management team, we're more than happy to be advised on those cultural practices and have your input. Thank you.
Thank you. You okay with where we're at with regard to this?
Your Worship, making sure that we have taken that action down appropriately in accordance with members' wishes.
Got a couple of nods beside me.
Okay.
Thank you. That takes us to 7 questions, actions. Councillor Gordon.
Actually, Your Worship, did staff get enough feedback on item 6? I know we sort of went to another part of that subject, but I just wonder whether we've appropriately answered the naming or the process of naming.
In terms of the project managers in the room, is there enough there for you to engage with Councillor Hira, Councillor Gordon around this and the possibility of circulating a process?
Councillor Duncan.
Councillor Duncan.
So I think that what I picked up there is that perhaps back to this in its pure form, regardless of the Māori Stone consultation, which I actually also fully support. I think it's great. Coming back to the naming, so what this is saying is that we're going to take the commemorative planting
opportunity to council will have committed, I got an email to say as much, to have a presence there with the gazebo and the barbecue and what have you, and also put out some, as it says here, the colouring and suggestion sheets, and then obviously that will feed back. But is that necessarily going to be the only opportunity for people to have an input into the naming of the building, or is that just going to be one that we've identified at this stage?
I view it as one identified at this stage, but certainly we'd be engaging, as of course with the community board, we'd be engaging social media, those sorts of engagements would routinely follow. So it's just one opportunity as I see it.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may just put a bit of context behind what we were hoping for. This time, things are slightly different in the construction of this building. So the way we structured it is to look at the value the building adds at the end of the process, not just the building itself. So one of the major things that's come up in those early discussions is, how do we name the building? And what we really wanted out of this item is some ideas from councillors as to what is the best procedure for us as officials to follow to get to a point where we have identified a name. So instead of this just coming from us again on a cookie cutter kind of thing that we always do, we thought we would tap into your own minds and your own experiences and knowledge as to, up and tie happy with the mix of people we have, what is the best way, what is the best methodology to end up with a name. And really what we were hoping today is a little bit more direction as to what that might look like, because you've got the local knowledge and you know the local mix of things, and there is nobody better to ask the question than yourselves.
Okay, I'll go Councillor Belsham, Councillor Hero, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Belsham.
Just looking around the district and what we've done recently, there's there's been a tendency to head towards or ask iwi for local input as well, especially around gifting of names to community assets. So I would say we've used that in other parts of our district. That should be something that we should be utilising up in Taipi. We've got the naming of the playground here in Marton that was gifted by local iwi. Also the new Tamatapihi community centre, that was a name gifted by local iwi. So I think that's an opportunity to engage with iwi up in Taihape to ask for some input in there as well.
Clarification, you don't see that as a solely engagement?
No, it's engagement with iwi to come up with concepts. So the whole community is involved. It's not literally just iwi deciding upon a name of a building.
Councillor Hero?
I just wanted to say that in regards to the makeup of the Hautapu River Parks commemorative group, that group, I don't know what was that collective. I know that iwi has a part of that collective, and given that Ngāti Tama have mana whenua over the Taihape area, it makes sense in my head that you're actually already hooked into people that sit within that decision making as Ngāti Tama to be able to help to give a point of view, because I would say that the rest of the iwi around would go with whatever they were looking at, given that they have mana whenua over that land.
Equally, if somebody wanted to name, a number, somebody may well say so-and-so is a local identity, that goes into the mix. Go Councillor Gordon, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Gordon.
So part of what I was going to say has been previously said by the previous two speakers. I think you've got park users, you've got some key groups there. You've also got the broader community. They have a big interest. I mean, a lot of them, even though they're not involved in active sport, it's a passive recreation space for them. So, we've got the community board, but we can reach broader than that. And especially with timeframes, if we need some naming done relatively quickly or some concepts pulled together, then our meeting calendar may not fit that well. And I'm thinking if you're looking at young people, because it's going to be the 5 and 10-year-olds that are running around that park now that will have the emotional ownership in the future. We've got quite active netball and ripper rugby happening on that park every Saturday and Thursday night. So before those season events, it might be good to hook into those kids. We did it for the for our LTP. You know, we had those pre-engagement workshops with the children with the colouring stuff. I mean, you know, let's engage with those young minds and see what they throw into the mix.
Councillor Duncan.
Yes, absolutely. Just to feed on to what both Councillor Hebel and Councillor Gordon have said, Ngāti Tamakōpere are a key part of that planting, the Hautipu River Park Collective, and the fact that that's a really good point about the naming sheet and the colouring competition that Council have actually suggested as on that day really ties in with that. And as a matter of interest, the Taiwan Community Board are looking at making the Tamakōpere Khan, which is up near the Gumboot on State Highway 1. They're looking at doing a planting and actually having a bit of a rejuvenation around that for the community as well. So it's actually quite timing, and they're thinking of that being tying into this whole thing as well. So it's probably quite good timing.
Perhaps I should know this, but I don't. The land must have been gifted to council at some stage in the past. You know, for instance, do we know enough about that history? Because I'd hate, for instance, a family to come to us and say, it was actually our family that gave the land, and we haven't been included in any discussion around land. Do we know that information?
Sorry, what land?
Well, when we have an area of parkland, inevitably, if you go back in time, somebody has usually gifted the land to the borough of the day to form rugby grounds or whatever. I don't know the history of this particular parcel of land, but there may well be a family name that is associated in the gift of that land. And we just, in my mind, just need to do a little bit of checking around that background. Because I'd hate, for instance, a family to say, well, it's actually my great-grandfather that gave this money, gave the money for this land, or gave the land, gifted it, and we haven't consulted with them. So here,
so my reply to that point of view is that I would say that that there wouldn't be many iwi throughout the country that wouldn't say historically that they could categorically tell you what spread of historical what their historical land holdings would be, regardless of whether they hold that land in their ownership today in 2021. You'd be able to step back, and there's been thousands of pages that have come forward over the last 8 years, I feel, with the claims, but actually not even to do with claims that historically the land. I will go back to the same thing that I said before, that as far as from an iwi point of view, Ngāti Tama is recognised as the iwi that holds mana whenua in the Taihape area. We wouldn't be looking at going to anyone else. So as far as I'm concerned, from the many years I've been in that space, there wouldn't be any of the other iwi around that would dispute that at all. So I understand what you're saying from a point of view of somebody must have owned it at some stage, but if you step back enough generations, the people that from a Māori point of view that would have had the ownership would be Ngāti Tama people. So that's my answer to that.
I was thinking of the analogy, for instance, in Bulls with Haylock Park, for instance. That was a set gifting process. I just want to make sure that a similar process hadn't occurred in knowledge with regard to this land. Have anything further with regard? Have you got enough feedback now to move? Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
We'll move on. And the next one is the water safety plan. No, moving on. The building line restriction, Maramara Street, we have a recommendation in there which council may wish to consider. Any questions around this report to start with? Would somebody be prepared to move a recommendation, whether it's recommendation 2 or another recommendation? Councillor Gordon, are you moving?
Yeah, or a second councillor.
Either or.
Yeah.
The recommendation is written. Yeah, recommendation
Okay.
2.
Take your pick, gentlemen. Yes. We'll call you the mover then, since it's passed to you, Councillor Wilson moving, Councillor Gordon seconding. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, you don't. No, I don't.
Any questions? Any speakers?
Your worship, we dealt with this concept some months ago from memory in a policy meeting, I think, or a previous council meeting. I think it's fairly clear cut.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. That deals with the building line restriction, Marton Street. The request for waiver of fees, Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust. Councillor Dalgetty will note your conflict with regard to this. I don't see that this is one that you need to leave the room. And if you are able to answer questions that may be directed that you have knowledge on, I'm prepared to accept that. And presumably you won't vote with regard to this item. Is that a fair summary?
Correction. I believe that letter was May 2020 as attached.
Questions around the report? Councillor Wilson.
The actual premises themselves are owned by Rangitikei District Council. Is that correct? We own it, and it is managed by the Hunterville Sport and Recreation, but the physical ownership sits with the Rangitikei District Council on our assets as a.
That's my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Hira, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Hira.
Are you looking for someone to move or second?
I'd love to.
Okay, I'd like to move that the council approves the request from the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust for waiving 100% of the cost of their building consent, which is $4,878.45.
Have we got a seconder to that? Councillor Lambert seconding. Do you have a question, Councillor Gordon?
I just did have it's a big picture question in terms of when council is doing work on its own assets, how do they do the bookkeeping in terms of fees? They effectively absorb the fees. We absorb the fees ourselves.
We've done ourselves. That's my understanding.
Yes, and effectively, as the Sport and Recreation Trust is doing it on our behalf, and then we waive the cost to them, we're billing ourselves again. It is a broad concept.
I don't have any direct involvement in this, but we can either invoice the landowner or the occupants, my understanding. So I don't know if we'd be invoicing ourselves for this one. So I've not had enough on this. I'm not sure how the work is.
Chief Executive responsible.
I think, I'm sorry, I can't see everyone online. Is it okay to speak, Your Worship?
Certainly.
I think for example, if council own a building and are doing work ourselves, I heard a speaker say that council will bill council and it will invoice council, and that's correct. In this case, this is a council-owned building, but we have engaged a trust to run that building, and we provide them funding to do so. We could invoice them and then and have them pay it, and then increase how much we pay them to run the building or facility, or we waive the cost. And I guess it is a somewhat moot point, but the way in which we've trended on this is to provide the funding to the organisation to run the asset, and in this case, any improvements, we come to you for a waiver.
Thank you, Worship. Question asked.
Thank you. Councillor Hero, you moved the motion, the recommendation. Do you wish to speak to it further?
Only just to say that I'm pretty sure this is one of the things that we talked about at our last meeting. Yeah. So I'm just going off from, I believe I moved something at that meeting. I'm just going off that.
Councillors, I have the feeling everybody's going to be in support of this. Are you happy if I put it straight to the vote? Yeah. Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Tapakai Park donations. This is number 10. Any questions around this? Councillor Gordon.
I've got a big picture question, Your Worship. I support the concept, but I wonder, have we just looked into the nitty-gritty legalities of collecting fees on spaces that we may or may not own? Some of what this group effectively manages on our behalf is Crown land, and does that set a difficult precedent for the future? Some of this estate is the dock estate, and so can we let a group set up a donation mechanism for the dock estate?
I think that this is definitely something that would need to be clarified too. So what my suggestion is that if somebody's wanting to move this recommendation, that they should add to it subject to clarification with regards to dock.
I'm prepared to move, Your Worship.
Including those terms?
Including those terms. I think it's really important because they won't be the other group, the only group that will operate in a similar mechanism.
Okay, the Chief Executive looking over my shoulder will of course be saying, can we just have this clarified? So, oh yes. So the recommendation would read that Council approves the use of an electronic payment / donation system and accompanying signage to collect donations for using the tracks, parks, etc. that have been upgraded, with all donations received being directed to the Friends of Taipi Society, subject to consultation with the Department of Conservation. And Councillor Gordon is moving that. Are you seconding that, Councillor Duncan?
Yes, I'll second it, but I'd also like to speak.
Well, we'll go back to the first right of speech. And so I'll go Councillor Gordon, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Hero, Councillor Gordon.
I support the general concept. We've got an awful lot of parks and reserve space that we don't actively manage as a council, and so we rely on volunteers. And it's rather like the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust in a way. So they have to get fairly creative in how they generate funds, and they apply to all sorts of charitable trusts. And this is just another mechanism of perhaps sourcing funds from outside of the Rangitikei funding gene pool. And so, I support it for that reason. And they're one of a number of groups that operate district-wide and have to generate funds to help us out for the greater good of the community. So I'll just leave it there.
Councillor Duncan.
Yes, and I'm just wondering who is going to be consulting with the Department of Conservation, because knowing this group, I suspect that has been done, but I agree that it should be in there. So in the first case, I suspect by going back to this group that you might find the answer rather quickly rather than going straight to doc. And this is completely, it's not a fee, it is completely a donation option, just to clarify that. And you would have to scan the QR code, yourself, and it's, yeah. So they wanted me to make that very clear that it is just a donation option to help with the maintenance, because it's all very well getting enthusiastic and planting lots of trees and making everything pretty, but it's the work that goes on after that actually falls on council to a big degree as well. And they're very keen, and that is an area of serious old man beard problem. So it really does need continuous maintenance.
It's a vote of support.
And it's voted for.
Councillor Hero.
So my question really was, is there anything within the Rangitike area at all at this moment in time that has this type of thing in it? So this would be a first time.
No, I mean, there are stock huts, for instance, that you actually pay a levy and have to book for, but that's not part of our estate. But that's the closest you would come to that in mine. Councillor Wilson.
I understand the concept. I think it's good. I think Councillor Gordon has brought a little bit of clarity to around the Department of Conservation. I just wonder if it's consultation with the Department of Conservation is one thing, but we almost needs a, if it's a legal opinion or some extra clarity around that, because and my nervousness about that is potentially, whilst it's a donation, donations soon become fees, questions get raised, and this may set a precedent for many other parts. And I would just want to make sure that you can actually do this on not only Department of Conservation land, but you can actually do it on council land. So the idea is great, the concept is great, the reasoning behind it's great, fully support that, but just a little bit of nervousness around jumping in and just saying, yep, what a great idea, let's do it, without a little bit more clarification.
I was going to comment on exactly this. So if you look at the areas of land bordering Lake Taupo, there are several iwi groups that said, for instance, it said, we don't want camping on this ground. And there's been then a series of disputes as to who owns the ground and what rights any party have to charge a fee. So by putting in the subject to consultation with Department of Conservation, they will be very aware of any legal position with regard to these sorts of things. In the same way it's come up with freedom camping all over the place. They'd be the ones to be able to give direction to. Councillor Belsham.
Yeah, I'm happy with the concept, but there's a lot of questions about, the group have been approached by a business. So the business are going to make money out of it. How much return do they take off the donations? There's a whole lot of unknowns that we could make a decision upon that we don't know we're impacting against the users. So there's a lot of information to come forward first.
Are there any speakers against the motion? So we've had 3 or more speakers in essence in favour of the motion. So without any speakers against, subject to the full recommendation, I'll put it to the vote, but write a reply.
Your worship.
I'm sorry to interrupt your flow. I just can't help but note Councillor Belsham's comment. At the moment, the recommendation reads all donations received being directed to the Friends of Taipa Society, and with the amendment subject to. If there is a cut that another business is making, that would make that recommendation, well, I would question if that recommendation is now strictly correct.
Can I ask the question of Councillor Duncan? You've been in this space quite a bit. Who will receive the money?
The money will go to the Friends of Taihape, Ngāti Tamakōpere, and 2 other individuals who are part of that collective. So the Hotepu River Park Collective are the ones that are going to be implementing this. And it's through Matt Thomas, in fact, who has been approached by this startup. And they're really asking this group to trial this facility.
If there isn't that's my understanding. No other independent company that is going to make money out of this.
As far as I know.
That's my understanding as well.
That would be my question. Is there a fee going to any other business or individual?
No, it says here the Friends of Taihape Society is a registered charity, so that they will be the ones receiving the funds.
I just want to be assured that there's no business making up.
So my guess is, well, it's more than a guess. By moving the motion subject to consultation, so staff are going to have to go back and check on the consultation process around that. Within that space, they will have the opportunity to say exactly who is receiving this money.
And that'll come back to council for final decision.
No, if this recommendation is passed, the decision has been made. If you want to refer it back after consultation, then you need to be very specific about the request to do that. But as it stands, if you pass this motion, you have made a decision. Councillor Corder.
Your Worship, in light of some of the discussion, I would be prepared to see this recommendation amended as the mover.
You can amend your own motion, so long as you get a seconder to it.
Yeah,
we haven't got to right of reply yet. If we had, then
yeah, it'd be all overrode.
Are you wishing to move?
I'm just trying to think quickly and come up with a quick amendment that will solve some of the issues that we've been brought up.
Perhaps some wording would be that council investigates the use of electronic rather than approving.
Yeah. I'd be happy with that.
If it's investigated, it must come back to council.
Yeah. So it's changed one word.
Are you moving that as an amendment?
Moving that as an amendment.
Is there a seconder to that amendment? Councillor Gordon seconding. Do you wish to speak to it further? Or?
No, it just means that we will get information clarified back to this before we can make a decision. Back to this council.
Make a comment on that. My reading of this is that the company is in consultation with the Department of Conservation to roll this out across all of their huts throughout the country. So Doc would already be aware of this. No?
This is not part of the rollout of any hut or tramping system, as I understand it.
It says here the company is looking to roll out this technology on Department of Conservation tracks and huts throughout the country, and they want the Taihape to trial it for them.
Okay. I take your point.
So all we're being asked to
do must be a level of yes. I forgot about the wording in the letter. Does that answer your concerns?
Oh, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
So we've got a mover and a seconder.
State that they're not voting for it.
Are you happy, councillors? I'll put the amendment to the vote that the word investigates replaces approves. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. The substantive motion now includes the word investigates. So she'll have to go and put in, sorry, the amendment was moved by Councillor Belsham, seconded by Councillor Gordon, to replace the word proposes, because that should still be in the first line. Yeah. Replace proof in the motion above. Recommendation 4. So that's now correct. Recommendation 4 is now correct. We've got to move on a second to that. And then the next go down to the amendment. The amendment is that we would investigate replaces the word approves. So there's a mover and a seconder there, and that has been carried, quite correct. So now I can put the substantive motion, which includes that replacement word. Any further discussion? I'll put it to write a reply back to the originals. Councillor Hero.
My only comment would be that potentially if everything above this is potentially could be done throughout our area. And lots of other places, like 2 times.
Right, I'll now go to the right reply of the original motion, which is sits with Councillor Gordon.
Your worship, I think we've managed to incorporate all the and deal with the issues that have been raised by other members around the floor. So I'm quite happy to have the motion put.
Right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you. By the way, while I'm just resetting my computer here, I'll congratulate the New Zealand cricket team. Yes, if it was within my powers, I would declare a national holiday. Moving on.
A district holiday then.
Yeah. Moving on to reports for decision. And who's taking us through this?
Sorry, Worship. I just have a question for Chief Executive, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Peter, I just attended my first Hunterville Rural Water Scheme meeting on Monday and was concerned that they've been unable to or unhappy to pass their financials since last December. And while I appreciate the workload the staff have been under and understand that a report is coming, I'm just wondering what the implication is in terms of this being the end of our financial year.
I don't know is the answer. I'm surprised that the committee hasn't responded to me in an operational way regarding any issues they have. So this is the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
Perhaps I can speak to this because I was at the meeting. There still are a series of questions to be resolved over, what and how often depreciation has been funded, and the charging of management fees. So there are 2 or 3 items that have been raised within that committee. Council has engaged a person to historically look back and look through all of the records to provide a report. That committee is still waiting on that report, and I understand that it is reasonably imminent. When that report is available, it will be presented to them and presumably to council.
Sorry, Worship, that's answering a different question to the one I heard. So you're absolutely right in a bigger picture. The council's support of rural water schemes falls short of my expectations, and from a administrative perspective, and it's equal for each of the water schemes that we're part of. I've had, or in fact, Michael Hodder has been engaged to go through the archives. There's a lot of information that council, the current council employees don't have at their fingertips, and that leads to our performance in providing good reporting, particularly financially, to those rural water schemes. So I can't remember exactly how many months ago, but a small number of months ago, I asked Michael to lead a review, and that is to go through all the archives and to build a picture of exactly the obligations that the scheme itself has, as well as council. There are conflicting views, including that of who owns the scheme. There's quite a considerable conflict, and so we're going right back through the archives to build that picture. Once that picture's been built, and I did get an email from Michael today to say the first draft of that report will be next week. We will then have to build a financial picture so we can understand the issues such as depreciation, etc. And we've got a contractor working for Dave through the month of July to help us with that. And the Hunterville, Rotorua, Sky, Erehorn and Omatani have all been advised of that process.
Councillor, does that answer your concern? Or do you,
I'm just, so being the end of the financial year, does that have an implication?
I'll pass that issue through to Chief of Financial Officer, who has a much longer name than that, but Mr. James.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so just to expand a little bit on what Peter was saying, back in December at the Rural Water Scheme meeting, it was recognised that there wasn't a common level of understanding regarding the content and format of the financials that were presented. And so officers undertook and recognised that the style of the reporting had changed over the last couple of years and couldn't really respond as to why. So we said what we needed to do was just to understand exactly what we should be showing. And in all like, so we'd conduct a review and then you go back and restate the financials as far as we had to, so they would give everyone the financial reporting that was needed. We said that in the meantime, we'll still table the financial reports as provided by officers in the current format, but there's a general understanding that once we get this report, we'll go back and restate however many years of finances we do need to restate, so we can demonstrate to each of the schemes what the true reserves figure is, what the surplus is, should there be one. So everyone's on the same page, because at the moment there's fragmented pieces of understanding as to what we should actually be showing. And just the format of the finances has changed over years. That a lot of it was a lot of data, but not a lot of meaningful information. So we're doing this in conjunction with the water schemes. Both sides get that we're doing this for the common interest, and we can go back and restate balances quite easily.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us through to the reports for this.
Just add a small point. Look, I sat on the Erewhon Water Scheme for 2 terms, I think. And one observation I would make is that many of the farmer members, some of whom have been there for a long time, don't always have the same financial literacy as we might have around the table with respect to depreciation and the whole concepts of it. And so some of them are right on the button, and you get a churn of members, people joining and leaving. And so it was always a bit of a struggle to keep those people up to speed, really. And I can't comment for Hunterville. I think the Omatani scheme was more problematic. You know, it's just how it is.
I sit on often on all of these schemes. I would say that the Hunterville Rural Water Scheme is probably the most complex and is certainly by far the most expensive. And I would say that the chair is an accountant by trade. So there's still issues are still there. A number of issues has been raised by someone other than the chair, who has a very high degree of competency. So these are financially literate people.
Yeah. Your Worship, if I may just add, this is something that we have discussed with the committees that we are doing with them, not for them. So any report that we do would be shared with them to make sure that the collective view is one that's presented and captured for future generations.
Councillor Hero, Councillor Lambert, Councillor Hero.
So as the councillor sits at the Erewhon Rural Water Scheme now, I'd just like to say that it is good that this is happening, because in meetings that I've been attended, there has been a hell of a lot of, sorry, I was supposed to say hell, but there certainly has been a lot of language that is used. It's not, yeah, it's good that we're doing something together to try and come to a solution.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert.
I would, well,
Tracy was sort of said what I was going to say. Yeah, the member on the Hunterville Rural Water Scheme who has raised concerns, as he himself stated, wish he'd done it years before. Like a new financial person seemed to come along, tweak the system, tweak the system, tweak the system. And so this will be bringing everything back online. So yeah, as I mentioned, the long-standing member wish he'd done it sooner. But it's a good thing it's happening. Yeah. Let's get us back online.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan.
And I'm on the I'm attorney. I'd just like to say exactly that is exactly right. And what I'm hearing also is that the members of the I'm attorney water scheme are very grateful that this is happening and they're looking forward to the results. Thank you.
Okay. All council can do is note in the minutes, Councillor Dalgety, that you've raised this as an issue. That there's been no specific recommendation that has come out of it, but you've noted it and staff inevitably will have taken note of your points. You're happy with that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll move on then to item 10, this is the reports for decision, starting page, I think 67. And 10.1, the changing rooms for Te Matapihi Bulls Community Centre. And we welcome you to the table. And first of all, I'll just get somebody to move the reception of the report that you're about to give. Slightly out of order. Councillor Dalgety moving. Councillor Carter seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. If you'd take us through the report, please.
Sure. So we have been asked to look into the options at Te Matapihi together with, we engaged the architects that have designed the building, and we also worked with the QS that has priced and helped price throughout the building project. We have received their suggestions for 3 options that they can see as feasible. The first option is to use the building as it is currently and do some very minor improvements by adding some curtains and blinds to the top floor rooms, which connects directly down to the stage through the back hallway. The second option is to change under the stage. Basically, you would have to move the stairs that are currently leading under the stage to the other side to make room for a lift that would service the under the stage, the hall level, and also the stage level. And moving the stairs on the other side is possible. It has some implications of moving the fire sprinkler system a little bit, but we have spoken to the engineers and it is possible. There's a risk that cost could be a little bit higher than expected in this area. And the third option is to build a new structure connected to the building on the back of the building. So basically completely behind the stage, there would be a ramp that leads, covered as well, leads around that space and goes back onto the stage as well for accessibility.
We thank you for your report. You're happy to take questions around the report. Councillors, questions around the report before we get into recommendations. Councillor Dalgety.
So in the main, we're talking about 4 events a year that would use the space. I just, can you give me a sense of what the ideal size that they require? Like, yeah.
Currently, I think mainly being used for school productions. So they have a number of children, I think between 30 and 50 is what we were told. Okay. I would like to point out though that if there is space and if we can make the space friendly, then the room will be there to make it, use it more for productions alike. So maybe that number could increase if there's an optimization of the space.
And can I just illustrate, there was an event there last night, they had Matariki celebrations, both schools were involved. Though one of the children were pre-dressed, if you like, or undressed, depending on which way you face these things. But a question back to you, with regard to option 2, that overcomes a number of other issues not associated with 4 events a year. It overcomes some of the issues around access to the stage, and it overcomes some of the issues around the ease of moving chairs up from below, putting them out and putting them back again. And I deliberately did that last night, took part in that. It is quite an exercise, and a lift area would be useful. Other follow-up question, Councillor Dalgety?
So do we have an understanding of what the users would like out of these options?
Yes. Probably not yet. The feedback that we had for them is that the space under the stage, for example, is as it is currently, it's not user friendly. But with the changes, we think we addressed that. And also, if we would make changes to the rooms upstairs, that also would address the privacy issue that, you know, there's no curtains at the moment, so getting changed is a little bit awkward, depending on who it is. But we hadn't asked them for feedback. We wanted to present these options first here, and then we can investigate further after this.
So the decision is to investigate, not absolute decision at this stage. Councillor Belsham, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Belsham.
I just want to know what the projected cost of the flex step is. So if the flex step was still to be utilised with option one, what is it? And option one, you've put a figure there of about $9,000 to upgrade blinds and what have you. But the flex step portion of that, what? It's not included in that 9,000, obviously. But how much is that? What sort of money are we looking at?
It's around the late 30,000.
30,000. Okay, all right. And you would only require that if option one was chosen. So option two utilises a platform lift. Okay.
And option three, just to add to that, has the ramp that would go from the hall past where the stairs currently goes down. You would take the ramp up and into that new building and then come up on the stage. So it would have also addressed that issue.
I was lucky enough to go to a meeting at the hall that when an expert was brought up by, I think it was Councillor Carter and Councillor Dunn at the time, who looked at that back building, and I, at that time and even now, just reading through these, the only real option is that option, because to me, underneath the stairs, underneath the actual stage, you would have to excavate to make that user-friendly. No?
No, that wasn't part of the plan,
No.
so it wouldn't change the floor level at all.
Which is way too low for any real comfort. I mean, if you're a child, I think you could probably manage, but an adult in that room is, even if you shift the stairs and you put it in a lift and maybe you can put up some nice cushions or something, doesn't make any difference. That space is not appropriate.
I was under there deliberately last night looking at that. I'm around about 6 feet tall, and I could live under there comfortably, putting chairs and things away.
But there's a, excuse me, Your Honour, I mean, Worship, can I speak again? If you're in a production and you're changing children and you're changing yourself and you're doing something for, I'm thinking a production. That's
probably getting into the stage of both of us in danger of arguing a motion that's not on the table here.
Yes, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Gordon.
Yes, I have a question around the platform lift. If we step back a step, one of the arguments against using the upper levels was the fact that people were having to negotiate stairs. I wonder if option two was the one that we went for. What would it cost to have a lift that actually accessed all the upper levels off the stage? Like having a platform lift that actually went to the top level. Is that a monstrous cost, and is that out of scope for this discussion?
I don't know the costs, but I would highly assume that you would have to change a lot of things in the building to make that possible.
Right, okay.
And that is like structural things that are probably important for the whole engineering of
The
the building.
integrity of the building.
Remember that the upper floor that you're talking about is the ceiling of the entire building. So you're not talking about accessing an upper floor because there's no upper floor there other than the being on top of the roof.
Sent off room, Your Worship, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, which is. Look, I'll put a recommendation on the table that council endorses option 2 and requests staff to complete further cost analysis and report back to the next council meeting. Councillor Carty is seconding 2. The reason for me, I'll speak to it before I move. So, this was the original design option, and a lot of the feeling against the construction and build and process was instigated by the fact that a pump was put in the wrong place, essentially. And this involves moving that pump and having a very, very short flight of stairs from one side of up onto the stage area, and I'm talking a flight of probably 7 or 8 steps, that sort of magnitude, and having a lift on the other side of the stage that deals with people that maybe in wheelchairs, for example, but also deals with the issue of moving stuff below it and above it. I agree also that the building, the room underneath needed changing, not only in terms of access, but it needed further lighting. It also needs a window, which is part of the cost structure, put into it to put some natural lighting, and so it's not such an enclosed space. When I first was involved in the build project, I thought this would not work because of the height. But at that stage, there were little wee triangle guards that came down about that far that were put in there as part of the construction process. And I, along with a number of other people, thought that it was almost like a permanent feature that you'd have to constantly, the lighting and so on in there is now completely flush with the ceiling. So if you're under there, when you're right next to the stage area, that's the low point of the building. As you go further back into the building, of course, the chairs aren't there during productions. There's actually, I'd have about that much clearance above my head. So, but there are also a huge number of other changing options within the hall. And it was always designed that way. Can I justify in my mind another 900,000 in terms of a purpose-built building for this? My mind counts as no. Take speakers to the motion. Councillor Belsham.
Yes, I'll speak in support of the motion. I think this covers off a lot of issues that we've had with access to the stage. It's a space that can be utilised. I was going to say I've been under there myself, but I'm a very short person, so it doesn't affect me whatsoever. But it does create a great change in space under there if we could utilise that space and make it easily accessible with the inclusion of a platform lift. I think this answers a lot of issues that some of the users had. So I'm in support of the recommendation.
Other speakers? Councillor Wilson.
Really, Your Worship, I've changed my mind, but I am going to actually support this motion, but a little bit reluctantly. I'm really concerned that we're trying to address a need that really isn't the need that people are telling us it is. I'm just really, really nervous about that we're not actually, we're trying to address a need that's not, potentially not real. Now, when I said that I was going to support the motion after initially thinking that I wasn't going to, based on that fact, you raised a very good point. What was delivered to the people of Bulls was not what was consulted on. And by that point, I'm referring to the pump and everything underneath the stage. And so on the grounds of that, I will be supporting the motion simply because of that fact.
Councillor Ash.
Entirely agree with Councillor Wilson. However, the thing I can't get my head around is I'm trying to picture you under the stage. You say you've got this much space above your head. I don't know whether you've ever tried, I don't know, changing a dress or anything, getting that over your head if you've only got that amount of space. It doesn't seem like enough headroom, especially if there is outfits, you know, think about trying to pull a sweater over your head or something, having to duck, it sort of makes it awkward, especially if it's costumes. I don't know, that's just the thing that I'm trying to get my head around with that particular design. I don't know if I'm on the right track there or not.
First question will be
The speakers against the motion.
Yes, I'd like to speak against this motion. I've had a lot of experience in these spaces, and what we're proposing to do is throw good money after bad. The only option that is feasible to meet the need is option 3. The other 2 are inadequate, and it was, I believe the cost estimate for number 3 is 600,000. It's a huge amount of money, and it's part of something that we need to take responsibility as a council because we built the building. It wasn't 900,000, but I just wanted to make that point. I don't know really what else to say, but except that really that much, again, absolutely what Councillor Ash said, it's completely inadequate.
Further speakers against? Right, I'll go back to myself for right reply. In terms of Councillor Ash's comments about me having about this much clearance at the front and this much clearance at the back, the people who will be using this changing room are children. They probably come up to about here on me. That is, in terms of adults and things, taller people than myself, they have to go down about 20 steps to get to this stage. Or they can take the lifts and so on, or there's multiple access points that are covered by other facilities. The building was always designed and consulted with the schools and every party around multiple changing sites. That hasn't changed. All that changed was during the build, there was one of those sites that was potentially rendered unusable. And it was rendered unusable because a little wee flight of stairs was removed because a pump was put there. And then there were subsequently issues raised around the need for a lift for people in wheelchairs, etc. So I think that we've gone a long way. And remember that this is still an investigation too. So as part of that investigation, I am presuming that we will go back to the schools and the groups. The building is having an extraordinary amount of use and people are very, very happy with it. Right, I've had my right to reply and now must put it to the vote. So those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Do you wish your votes against recorded? Thank you. Move back to 10.2. Rangatiko Beyond 2050 and the project scope. So who's dealing with this one? First of all, can we receive the report, please? Councillor Gordon moving, Councillor Lambert seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you, Your Worship.
The purpose of this report is to present the draft scope of the Rangitiki Beyond 2050 project to Council for endorsement. The draft scope's been developed following a joint workshop that we had with elected members and our Te Raukaua Hika committee members, and also an officer workshop that we held internally. The draft scope sets out the purpose of the project, what's included, what's not included, some success indicators and indicative supporting information that we might need to develop the spatial plan. Effectively, the scope of Rangitiki Beyond 2050 will be to set some outcomes and objectives for our district as it grows, focusing on future land use. We'll also look at what actions are going to be needed to achieve those objectives. What we won't focus on will be things such as operational matters or the really detailed. So this is our high level strategy that sets out the direction for our district for the next 30 plus years. What I've outlined in the paper is a suggestion for the development of an advisory group to support this project. It is going to be a really intensive project to develop efficiently. So we've suggested the development of an advisory group and open the idea to further facilitate our partnership with iwi, that advisory group could be a group that has both elected members nominated on and also Te Raukaua Hika members nominated on. My recommendation to you, if you decide to establish the advisory group, would be that the size of the group would be around 6 members in total, so possibly 3 elected members and 3 from the Te Raukaua Hika committee. And it would be recommended that if there was a resolution that it would be delegated to the chair of the Te Raukaua Hika committee to nominate those representatives. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions to the report. Just one question from me. So the advisory group is the first stage, and then there's a series of consultation processes, including from there on through, which would include things like community committees and boards and things.
Yes, most definitely. I'll expand on that a little bit. So the project will be developed in conjunction with council and the wider community. The purpose of the advisory group is to run almost like a workshop style to really delve in greater detail to the issues that we're going to be facing effectively as we develop the spatial plan. So they're the group that will get quite intensive into the project, but definitely we would look to bring work back to full council itself as the ultimate decision maker and work back to our Te Raukaua Hika committees. We would also go to our community committees as well. We would have full public engagement and consultation processes as well. So the intent is for it to be a collaborative project. We definitely would not go away in a little corner, create the whole document ourselves and then say, what do you think of this?
Thank you. Further questions? Okay, Councillor Gordon.
I've got one. Fairly big picture. What sort of skill set might we be looking for in an advisory group? Because we could throw a whole lot of names in there, but really this is quite key.
Yep, so from my perspective, through your worship, we're looking for people that can look at the bigger picture, can think to the future, that think outside the box, and have the time commitment to put into the advisory group as well. There will be quite a lot of reading for you to do to understand the context, as well as people that really truly understand the district, which I'm sure you all do, would be looking at you to bring your perspective of the district as a whole.
They won't need specific planning backgrounds.
No.
You provide that.
I'll provide you with the technical input. Yeah.
Any idea of timeframes that this work would occur over, and any idea of workload?
Yep, so at this stage, I'd be hoping to have monthly meetings. Those meetings would likely need to run for a minimum of 2 hours, if not half-day workshops. Prior to those sessions, you'd be provided with pre-reading that would probably take an estimate of a minimum of an hour. And really we need those workshops on a monthly basis at least to be able to get the project completed even by the middle of next year.
So we are talking a considerable amount of money. Well, first of all, can we deal with this section by section? So would somebody like to move that we endorse the project scope? Councillor Hero, are you moving? Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Dalgety. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Recommendation 3, maybe we could get some names here. First of all, I'll put my own name forward as one.
So I was just going to get some clarity around that. The mayor is not automatically on this board, so he would be one of the elected members you're referring to.
Or ex officio is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
It would be up to elected members to decide who to put on the advisory group.
Just wondered, traditionally the mayor has been involved in that space, those sorts of things. Ex officio, as you say.
The intention from my perspective was that the mayor would comprise of one of the 3.
Okay, thank you for the
Happy
clarity.
to take advice.
I think a little bit of clarification around for some of the councillors around the ex officio role. So the ex officio role really means that you can be part of the process and you can vote, etc. But it may be that you don't need to be there at every single meeting. So, you know, you have, because of timetabling, availability, etc., sometimes you can't be there. With this role, you can't really opt in and opt out because it's built on layers the way that I see it. So I think you could have more than 3, but I think I do need to be in that space. Also, Duncan, are you showing an interest?
Yes. May I speak as well then? I'm showing an enormous amount of interest. I don't know whether I'm the right person, but I would like to say that I think this is so important that I'd be surprised if anyone here doesn't want to be involved. But I can see that obviously it gets unwieldy, although I'm sure Katrina could deal with us with one hand tied behind her back. But on that note, I also think that because we are such a diverse district and we've all been elected by various groups of people to represent them, I would at least like to see that there's someone from each ward. And whether that's Tracy or Angus or I would like to see the right person or the best person on that. That's what I'd like to say. But having said that, I am interested.
Any further interest from people? So we have at this stage interest from Councillor Duncan, Councillor Hero, Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Panapa, Councillor Gordon. Will we need, in your view, interest from Te Rupi Ka? Is anybody saying that we should not engage with them as well? Councillor Hero.
Given that the report has asked that Te Rupi Ka be part of this group, I would be happy to, because at the end of the day, they've got to make a decision, but when it comes back around the table for Te Rupi Ka, I'll be putting my hand up in that space.
Okay, so would you be happy to drop out of this space as the, when you tend to work, we're going to have to wear both caps anyway, regardless of who you are.
I would be, yeah.
So just to clarify, we now have Councillor Duncan, Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Panapa, and myself showing interest. But I guess the question I'd come back to is that too many? I know it's our call, but give us some professional advice here.
I think my advice would be around seeking guidance from you around how many members from Te Rauwhia you would also want on that group. If you're having 5 elected members, that would probably be a question to you. If there's 8 elected members on the advisory group, that's probably workable. If there's 10, it gets quite unwieldy with the level of detail we'll be going into.
Okay, Councillor Rakawa first, Councillor Hira second, Councillor Rakawa.
Okay, Your Worship, I think that if I were given the opportunity here, then by the same token, the option of 5 be given to Te Rauwhia as well. That's my thoughts.
In other words, there would be 10 in your view. Councillor Hira, as a shared joint vision, if you like.
Sorry, can we just confirm who were the 5?
So we had Councillor Duncan, Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Panapa, and Councillor Gordon, myself.
Okay. I'm going to throw this out here without even having gone through Te Rauwhia at all, and say that finding, I would think that it would be difficult, to be honest, for us to find 4 committed people that are able to come to monthly meetings from Te Rauwhia. So I'm going to say that with that hat on, but the hat that I would be, when I put my hand up, when it comes across the Te Rauwhia table, would be as an Ngāti Whiti Kaupeka delegate. So then, so that it's, I'm just being realistic, and I would say that it'd be very hard for them, for the capacity. It's not that they haven't got the capability, it's the capacity, but yes, they should have the opportunity. But again, you don't want to get to a stage of having 10 people and 5 people turn up to a meeting.
One of the issues that people absolutely have to be committed to this, because it is layer upon layer upon layer with these things. You can't just suddenly say, oh, I want to go back and in the process. Remember, every single councillor will be involved in this process. This is literally a steering group.
And up to 5 members from Te Rauwhia.
Okay.
I'll be happy with that.
Yep. Councillor Hira.
So just taking on board what Councillor Duncan had said about potentially a northern, a southern and a central. Would there be an issue with that? Because we have actually got northern, southern and central elected members that have shown interest in being part of it.
Yeah.
If we were trying to keep down to potentially 3 and 3, and making it a workable group, focused group.
Well, the feedback I've had, the advice I've had from staff is that if the recommendation was that council establishes an advisory group comprising of the following elected members as written and up to 5 members, the Te Rauwhia nominated by the committee chair, would there be a mover to that motion? So Councillor Panapa, are you moving that? Looking for a seconder to that. So that's saying those people listed there, plus up to 5, depending on their availability and desire, etc. You wish to second that? Thank you. Councillor Panapa, before you leave the room, you were the mover of that.
Just kidding myself.
Wish to speak, John.
Getting some Dutch curry.
I won't inquire as to what comes out of our drinking fountain.
I would say that the desire of this council to have that visionary approach to this district is inspiring, and I'm more than comfortable with the membership that is on the screen, and trust that the maturity of Te Rauwhia will come to the fore in terms of who they choose to represent that body on this steering committee. So a lot of kudos to the staff for even coming up with this this idea. So thank you.
Any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Duncan.
I have a question. If,
Questions?
thank you. If, for instance, the Northern Ward councillors were to have a discussion, and if it happened that Councillor Hero became one of those representatives, I would be happy to step down. I mean, if it makes it easier, I would feel that I was represented.
Councillor Hero has indicated that she may wish to take up one of the Terupier car positions rather than be as a councillor.
Yes, so, but in a way, that northern perspective is still there. I'm just saying, I just want to make it a, you know, a more efficient beast. And I'm just saying, is that still an option if discussions developed that I was not needed? That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I mean, you're welcome. You're welcome to have those discussions amongst yourselves. If somebody wants to withdraw, then that's fine. What I don't want to see is somebody withdrawing part of the way through a process that is going to be very lengthy. Any further?
Sorry, just some reassurance, or potentially some reassurance to Councillor Duncan, I was going to call you Councillor Gordon. That potentially, when it comes to a vote around a table for Te Rōpū Car to put other delegates up, there are 4 other iwi that sit there that are northern. So, you know, I'm just saying that I could be, I'm happy to put my hand up under that hat to be part of this, because like you, we need to be onto this. This is a big deal as far as I'm concerned.
Right, look, unless there's an objection, that haven't really been speakers against, so I'm not at this stage going to go back to a right to reply. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. I should have said against or for. They were just questions. Thank you. Carried. 10.3, small projects fund pools and Marton community committees. And the first one, recommendation, we approve or do not approve to carry forward of $1,254 from the Bulls Community Committee Small Project Fund. Councillor Carter, are you wishing to say no? Looking for a seconder to that. And you're saying that they do carry forward. Thank you. Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Rakawa, you seconding. Any speakers to wish to move? What's the vote? Those in favour? Those against? Carried. The next one is that council approves or does not approve the carry forward of $3,422, 1 year's allocation in the Marton Community Committee Small Projects Fund. Councillor Belsham, I think you signalled that you wish to put a recommendation in that space.
I would like to move a recommendation, and it is based around moving the full amount that sits in the Small Projects Fund for Marton Community Committee of 6,700. Now, sorry, Mr. Toomsy, you're able to provide us the correct figure for that. I know the report states we've got it here.
Yes, $6,723.50.
50 cents. Okay, I'd like to move the recommendation that we move that full amount forward, and I'll speak to that. I have a second.
For a seconder. Seconding. Councillor Wilson, second. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, the reason for this is this committee, unfortunately, due to different circumstances, has not been able to meet since late last year. And I understand that there have been applications that have been sitting, waiting to go in front of that committee, applying to the Small Projects Fund. And unfortunately, circumstances haven't allowed those to be put in front of the committee. Now, there is a committee meeting set for August the 11th And if the committee gets a quorum, they can make decisions based on putting those applications to that fund. So I think in fairness to that committee and in fairness to the Marton community who have actually paid this out of their rates into that fund, we should shift that full amount forward to this new financial year.
So just to clarify this, so if they had met, they could conceivably have spent this money and therefore the request to carry it over. What would be useful, I think, and from my point of view as chair, because we have an existing policy, it would be useful for us to record the numbers, because it may well be, council staff may well come back to me and say, you're overturning something as a policy we'd like to see. They may have liked to have seen a 75% majority. I'm not sure about that. It would probably stand alone as is, but I will like to record the vote. Councillor Belsham.
Would the recommendation be required to have some sort of wording in it that says we recognise we're going outside of the scope of carrying funds forward from the small projects fund? So I'm happy for wording to be put in there to recognise that.
Thank you. And we just wait for doing it, and we're getting the right words around this. Yeah. I'm more than happy with that. So would that become part of your recommendation? The seconder, Councillor Wilson, you're okay with that?
Happy with that addition, yes.
Do you wish to speak to it further?
No, I think I've clarified the reasoning for it. Thank you.
I think you have. So I'll put it to the vote. Could I have a show of hands, please? Those in favour of the motion? Motion has unanimous support. Those against, carried. Your Worship. Sorry.
Your Worship, then now considering recommendation 2, can we go back to look at recommendation 1 for the bulls? Because we also haven't had a committee for a little bit. Just saying, if the recommendation number 2 goes, can we do the same for the bulls community committee?
You would certainly, I would invite you to put a recommendation on the floor. Move a recommendation. I would ask the question as to whether they have unspent funds first, because I'm not sure they do.
No.
I don't think they have. I don't think it's necessary, Councillor Rocco. Yeah. From the previous cycle, they get to carry over one cycle.
So their yearly allocation is 1,254 and their balance is 1,900.
So there is. Right. I apologise. So Councillor Rocco, it would be appropriate for you to put something, a recommendation.
I recommend the council approves the carry forward of $1,254 from unspent funds for the 20
current balance.
Oh yeah.
No, what you're asking for
Move
is
forward the current balance.
You're asking that the current balance of
2,000.
Cool. No. Yeah, perhaps it would be tidier, having already approved the first one, a separate recommendation to carry forward the previous year's balance. So in other words, you end up with 2, because I don't want to remove a recommendation that's already been passed.
Okay, yeah.
So the unspent balance from the previous year was $700.
$1,047. It was rolled over from 2019, 2022, 2020, 2021.
Yeah, but hang on. So the total and the total money in that account at the moment is how much?
$1,901.90.
$1,901.90. So if we remove the $1,254 that we've already passed over, that leaves something at 90 cents in it.
Madam Chair, could I suggest potentially in June for our
Yeah, I make it $647.90 from the previous year. That's my subtraction is, well, I'd like to deal with it there if we can. Would you like to move the sum of $647.90 being the previous year's unspent funds be rolled over?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. You're seconding it? Councillor Belsham, you're Chair of Finance.
Yeah, I just, like a clarification, so you understand. So you're adding to the 1254. So whether that recommendation should state that figure, so it's easy to understand. Otherwise, you've got to read two separate recommendations.
Well,
you're referring back to that.
I've got to deal with two separate recommendations because one has already been carried.
Yeah. Whether you can reference that recommendation and
yeah. In addition to
in addition to referencing that.
The words, and I'll let council staff during the break just to make sure that that's absolutely correct, and then we'll vote on it. And we'll adjourn for smoko. Thank you. Adjourn council at 3 o'clock. Looking to resume council at 3:15. Please be on time. please. Owen. Thank you. Just note, I have received an apology for an early leaving from Councillor Wilson and acknowledging Councillor Dalgetty. You have to get away
At 4:30, please.
4:30.
Just
Thank
going
you.
to
Thank you very much. I'll resume. Can we first of all tidy up the recommendation with regard to bulls? And that would read that council approves the carry forward of $647.90, the unspent funds that were not carried forward in recommendation 1 for the Bulls Community Committee Small Projects Fund, acknowledging that this is inconsistent with resolution 16 from the boom, allowing for 1 year's allocation. So mover, Councillor Carter, Councillor Rakawa seconding it. We've had the discussion. Show of hands, please. All those in favour? Unanimously. Recommendation 4, recommendation 3 we didn't deal with, sorry. That council approves or does not approve the donation of $1,000 to the Wilson Park Development Group to come out of the Marton Community Committee Small Projects Fund.
Yes, I'll move that it does approve.
Thank you. Councillor Carter seconding. I think this, anybody against this? Please go ahead.
My question is this $1,000 out of the small projects fund. This is in addition to and nothing to do with the $25,000 that's been allocated in the long-term plan?
No, it's addition to.
And it's from the fund that you've just carried forward.
Yeah.
The small projects fund.
Thank you.
Put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Moving through to the next item. And this is the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting remits, page 88 starts on. Yes. So the remits, if you're not working off your tablet, and I think just everybody is, they're under a separate heading. So we have a series of remits and we've been asked to consider 7. There are other remits, by the way, that were submitted by councils that Local Government New Zealand Council have set aside. So really, first of all, someone could move that the project, that the reports be received. Councillor Rakawa moving, seconded. Councillor Ash seconding. Yes. Those in favour? That's against. It's just receiving the report. So now we need to go through those remits and you need to indicate your council preference. Now, I do stress that when it comes to this decision at local government, that it's a democratic process. So the mover gets up, speaks to the remit, the seconder has a right of speech, and then from the floor, there may well be arguments, and then the people that have the power of the button, in this case me, gets to vote. Is it in theory possible that I could vote against the direction that's given to me? You would only ever consider that if there was some startling information came to the floor and council wasn't aware of. And then probably I wouldn't vote against it, I'd probably abstain. So I would always normally vote with the recommendation from around this table. And if I didn't, my expectation would be to come back and say, this was presented to me, councillors I don't think were aware of it, and I abstained. I noticed that there is a mayor in New Zealand who their council have not given them the authority to be the presiding member. In other words, that council does not believe that that mayor will consider their wishes. Just saying. Right. Who's going to take us through this?
I'm happy if you want any sort of guidance. My suggestion is you go through remit by remit, look for general support, and then move the recommendation as one. But over to you how you want to run it.
All right, I'll just go to the remit sheet. We'll go through them one by one.
First remit, 56 pages of this.
Take your time.
We can hear online clearly some of the councillors' conversations.
Thank you. Right, remit one, this is the remit of tree protection. I'm presuming councillors that you've read these remits. So this comes from the Auckland Council. I'm not going to read all of this, obviously. Does anybody have a view in terms of wanting to support or not support? This is one that I have question marked against, to be honest. Is any Councillor Duncan, do you have a view?
Yes, I'm against us supporting this because I feel that it's really Auckland making rules for the rest of the country. I can see that we have such an array of climate and soil types, and I mean, from the top of our little country to the bottom is significantly different. And this is Auckland looking to make rules for everybody. And I can see actually they're big enough to do it on their own. So I'm against us making it into a whole of local government rule.
I'm in agreement with you. Councillor Belsham.
Yeah, this basically would allow councils to make decisions on trees on private property.
Correct.
And I think that's completely against the ability of a private property owner to make their own decisions about what happens on their private property. So yeah, I would speak against it.
Does anybody wish to speak for it? So would you like to move, Councillor Duncan, we vote nay to this?
I would like to move that we vote nay for this.
Seconded by? Seconded. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Great. Certainly. It usually means that I've got something wrong. Can you tell me what page remit number 2 is on? 57.
56.
Remit number 2, this is the rating value of forestry land, and it's to do with land, and comes from Gisborne City Council, fairly heavily supported. And this issue is about essentially the capital value rating system and wanting to include forestry being rated as part of that process. Councillor Belsham.
I'd be happy to move that we support this remit. It certainly goes some way to addressing the disparity that we have with our roading network, and that we've always spoken about blocks of land and forestry, how the rates are significantly lower than say dairy farming, blocks of the similar size, and yet they've got quite a high capital value of trees on those properties. So
we're looking to a seconder to this. Councillor Dalgetty. Is there an opposing view? Somebody put the vote, those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. So we're saying yes to remit number 3, the funding of civic education proposed by Hamilton City, that the local government advocate to central government for provision of funding to enable councils to engage in civics education. So this is asking the central government to provide funds to educate people about civic and local government, etc. Does anybody have a view? Councillor Hero.
No, I totally support this. I think it's something.
Be prepared to move that. Seconder to that. Councillor Lambert seconding. Does anybody have a contrary view? Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Votes against? Carried. So that's funding for that one. We will say yes to. Next one, 4, remit 4, promoting local government electoral participation. This is one that's come out of Palmerston North City. And the power the Chief Executive has under the LGA, the Local Government Act, for facilitating and fostering representative and substantial electoral participation in elections and polls be removed and placed with the Electoral Commission. Mixed views around this one from me. Anybody have a view?
I just say I don't really understand this.
I thought people might say that. Effectively, the way that I see this is it is passing responsibility from the local council to engage and to central government, saying it's your role, not ours. Well, I'm sorry, I think that it's everybody's role, to be honest. I don't think that you can totally pass the buck on this. So although it's Palmerston North City and our neighbour, my feeling would probably be nay, that we do have a responsibility in this space, especially if we're reviewing, engaged in the new form of local government without 3 waters, social structure, and etc. I think we have a space there. That's my personal view. Anybody else have a view? And I am aware that it's difficult to understand what they're getting at here. Right, I'll say no. Councillor Carter, you've got a view?
I was going to ask that maybe we have the view of the Chief Executive since he's been put in that position.
Yeah. Peter, do you have you read through this remit?
I have, Your Worship. I can see both sides of this. I agree with you that it's everyone's responsibility and not just the Electoral Commission or necessarily the Chief Executive. I do think it's in the best interest of our council to promote electoral representation in our district. And if I can do it really, really, really well, then that should be up for you to encourage me to do that.
You're sitting very much along in my thinking that it's everybody's role.
I do believe so, Your Worship, yes.
This is quite... Anyway, look, I'll move that we say no on the basis that I believe it. This is one that I maybe will, if there was one remit that I could be swayed at by some argument that we haven't been able to envisage, that's one remit that I think, maybe it's... So
can we vote in that direction? Can we leave that up to you to make a decision at the meeting?
The other thing I'd add, Your Worship, is that this was supported by Zone 3.
Yeah. But I chair Zone 3. I co-chair Zone 3. Would you be happy to move that the decision on the day rests with
I think that's a pretty good.
the delegate. I'll move that. You'll move that, seconded by Councillor Duncan first, I think. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against?
Can I
Thank
have
you.
1 moment just to get that one sorted?
Have you got a view, Councillor Gordon, on remit 5?
Yeah, I think we should be supporting this consistent reporting.
Yeah, I think so too. You happy?
Yeah.
Right, we're past it anyway, so we'll move on. Remit 5, this is the carbon emission inventory standards, again coming out of Palmerston, supported by Zone 3. And it's developing consistent standards. Councillor Gordon, are you happy to move?
Yeah, I'm happy to move that we support.
Councillor Lambert, are you seconding?
Yep.
Any other opposing view? Those in favour? Those against? Carried, thank you. Item 6, the WINS accommodation supplement. This is coming from Queenstown Lakes that works to conduct an urgent review of the accommodation supplement. This is about really the cost of living having changed and being widely variable depending on where you live in the country. The argument is if it costs you more to live in Queenstown Lakes because of accommodation costs, etc., then the supplement should be higher than if you're living in some other district that has lower standard or cost of living. That's where this comes from as I read it. Does anybody have a view?
I've got a question.
Certainly.
So anything that comes out of LGNZ, they're able to have an input into any government agency, is that correct? Any ministry?
Yeah, so if a remit is passed, then effectively you're asking LGNZ to take the remit direction back to government and say, this is the view of the membership, this is what we want, and they will advocate to that view. So this is asking, a remit is asking for a body of work to be done by LGNZ to support the views of the membership.
Thank you.
Essentially, Queenstown Lakes are arguing quite strongly that there should be a sizable increase because of the cost of living. The counter argument to that is if you don't have a job or a place to live, then maybe you should consider going to somewhere that's more affordable. To put it bluntly, Councillor Ash.
I'm all in favour, obviously, of accommodation supplements and central government supporting that. However, I'm not a supporter of taxpayers having to pay more to subsidise rents that potentially are too high. I'm just not in favour of this one at all.
This, by the way, this is asking for a view. It's not saying that this has to be the case.
No.
Councillor Duncan.
And on just that point exactly, because they're asking for a review, I would move that we support it.
Okay, we've got a seconder to that. Councillor Ash second. Does anybody have a contrary view? Put it to vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, so that's a yes to that remit. 7, the liability for building consent functions. This comes out of the Waikato that LGNZ works with the government to obtain legal protection indemnity from the Crown in favour of all councils to implement warranty and or to implement a warranty scheme for any civil liability claim brought against the council with regards to building consent functions carried out by Consentium. Okay, so this is a case where, for instance, so Housing New Zealand can set up a group of people that are authorised under the Building Consent Authority to be a PCA, to be able to literally to approve consents. Now, what the Waikato are saying here, and other councils that support them are saying, that is a commercial entity. And if they ran into trouble, they could say, oh, we're out of that market now, and by the way, we've changed our name, or we're now no longer an entity. And in effect, the councils are the last men standing. And that the local council would be the one left picking up the cost, even though we haven't signed the sign off in the building. Perhaps I'll pass to you, the Chief Executive. Have I represented this correctly, and do you have any advice to give council?
You have represented it correctly. I would only, my words would only encourage what you've said and amplify them 100-fold. It's a very real concern for me as a liability, yes.
Happy to support, move that the council supports this.
Councillor Duncan seconding. I think everybody is going to do it. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Now, just to be aware that there were a number of remits that went to LGNZ and as remits, and LGNZ said, actually, we don't effectively, we think this could be dealt with by the local government, LGNZ council, not the membership. And this will, I'm not raising an enormous red flag over this, but are there any remits that you want raised to say, we disagree with you? This should have been a remit that went to LGNZ, the membership rather than the executive council. So the first one, you know, the remit being declined, fair, because it's already been discussed, it's been declined once, nothing dramatically has changed since. But just, is anybody that had read through all these that thinks, no, that is wrong? No? Right, we'll push on then. We move now to 11, the reports for information. So you need to come out of that one. You now need to go back into your original pages of 24. Give you a second to do that. If you revert back to your ordinary council order paper. And we're now at 11.1, page 89. I know that takes me a fraction to get back to where I want to be. Jeez. Right. So recommendation 1, that somebody move that we receive the reports, please. Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Gordon, those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. And recommendation 2, that the electoral members wish or do not wish to review the designs for the Taihape design for the Taihape Amenities Building. Jess.
If
Could you take
make
us through this, please?
Absolutely. If I could make a comment on that recommendation, Your Worship, the elected members will absolutely get to see the detailed design and have seen the prelim or concept level design. This is really just a questioning if you'd also like to see the developed design.
A view from councillors?
I'd like to move that we see the developed design.
That we, in effect, we do. Seconded. Councillor Duncan. Any questions, discussion? Councillor Belsham.
Just how will that be presented? Will it be through a council official meeting, or will it be emailed to elected members?
We will aim to take it through the official council meeting.
Thank you. As long as that doesn't hold up process, that's all. That's probably what I was getting at. If it's quicker to get it emailed out to elected members just for review, please do that.
Great, thanks. Will do.
Right, where do I have to go next?
Do you want to see questions?
Okay, well, I've done that. Any questions on the report? Is there anything you want to highlight as further as part of your report?
Yes, there are. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Might be useful to quote a page number if you bring them up.
Absolutely. I'm just finding the page number, but the Taihape Park development, item number 5 in my report, which is page 98. I wish to advise elected members that on Tuesday this week, the 22nd of June, there was a small fire in the grandstand. It appeared that a lit cigarette was dropped, which went down between some pieces of wood, and the wall began to smoulder. So the firefighting crew broke in through the changing rooms to extinguish the fire, and there was a minor amount of damage.
But deliberately lit?
It did not appear to be deliberately lit.
Any questions around that or any other item? Councillor Panapa, Councillor Hero, Councillor Panapa.
So I'm just looking at the Lake Waipu improvement at Marton Wastewater. I think is that part of this section?
Yes.
I noted that I was not included within the meeting that was recently held, and have informed Logan from Horizons to loop me in, but also wanting to be a part of any conversations with the interested parties. I think it's important as the councillor living in Marton, I should be sort of looped into all those conversations that are going on around that issue.
Comment?
Very happy with that. Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, Peter.
There is a planned site visit for you that's being organised over the lunch break today for you to attend the site of the potential land that council may lease or purchase, and hopefully for you to meet the landowners. You may wish to invite Councillor Panapa with you for that visit.
I'll do so. Thank you. Councillor Hero.
So I just wanted to total all the kōrero that Councillor Panapa has just laid on the table to support that he be absolutely part of anything that's going on up there.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Just on the Marton to Bulls wastewater centralisation project, I see here the pipeline between Marton and Bulls needs to be constructed before the end of March 2022. Is that still very much doable?
I can respond to that, Your Worship. It absolutely is. Last Thursday night, we held a supplier briefing for contractors who may be submitting a registration of interest. We held it at Te Warapihi and had about 25 people come from 7 construction firms. The registration of interest closes on Monday next week, the 28th of June. We've already had a submission. We got some questions and some interest during this phase as well. So we are hopeful that we will get a good turnout, and out of that registration of interest, we will confirm a shortlist who score highest in the awaited attributes. They'll receive a full set of tender documents in July. One of the criteria for our evaluation is meeting the timeframe of March 22. And we've indicated through the supplier briefing and the documents that went out on GETS, which is the Government Electronic Tender Service, that we are open and interested in innovation, different ways of working to achieve those timeframes. And we have included both in the supplier briefing and in these first set of registration of interest documents, some incentives to encourage contractors to come and work here.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like they don't need much encouragement. They're very keen to get here. That's excellent.
It's nicer to get somebody local too. So, further questions? Otherwise, I'll move on. Councillor Duncan, Councillor Belsham, Councillor Duncan.
I just have a question. It's good to see that the Giblin Group are going to be engaged for the lotteries application for the grandstand. I'm just wondering, are we able to link in other groups such as the playground groups and those sorts of people to that consultation through the council?
Can I query that? So the Giblin Group is for the Taipei Amenities Building.
Yes.
And we've engaged them as per a resolution in, I believe, April to do the fundraising application. When you say bring in other groups, do you mean for fundraising for other projects?
Yes.
Can I respond to that? So the Giblin Group have reformed or reinvented themselves as well. So there's a complication there. So they're not going to operate in the future the way that they have been operating in the past. So that's probably not an option.
Thank you.
I've got that correct, haven't I?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
Any further questions around this report, Councillor Belsham? Sorry, I meant to
Just on page 100, project 6, the remediation of the historic landfill. And there was to be a high-level meeting with Horizons in regards with concerns over remediation of the site or stabilisation of the site. Has that happened, and have we come to an agreed solution position?
So there was a direction to the Chief Executive and myself to take it up with Horizons in terms of that process. I haven't. I'm not sure, Peter, if you have.
No, Your Worship. I wanted to ensure that, and my hand was up a minute ago to draw your attention to this particular one and to seek what recommendation council might have formally on that.
If you would like to put it formally in front of council, what it may be useful is the council direction on this rather than what was a fairly informal discussion.
Yes. Okay.
So
I'm happy to move.
That.
Yeah, I'm happy to move a recommendation, and I'm not sure of the appropriate words to put around it, but it would be that the Chief Executive and His Worship the Mayor meet urgently with the Horizons senior team, whoever's the Chief Executive would it be, and Chair of Horizons, to formulate and expedite a resolution to the Portorino landfill issues of ground stabilisation. Would that be enough?
That would be enough. That gives us scope.
Thank you.
I'm looking for a seconder to that. Have we got that motion correct?
No, completely finished. What was the last part? Sorry.
Expedite a resolution. Yeah.
Remediation.
Remediation.
Oh, yeah, remediation.
Were there any councillors not at the Putarino site that wish this explained?
The outstanding issues would it be?
Okay.
I'm just trying to get the wording right, sorry.
And here it says change in requirement. Because that was the trick, wasn't it? Because we have sorry.
I think the outstanding issues sort of holds a broader perspective so that we can actually have that broader discussion.
The issue here, Councillor Carter, that we're referring to is with this Putarino development, reclaim of the waste dump. As part of the agreed process in the consent was, first of all, that there be a coffer wall put in place, steel sheet piling to protect it. And that consent was issued on that basis. And now Horizons are saying, well, actually, we may want the sheet piling to remain permanently. And this wasn't that they agreed to as a consent process. This is what we have been being directed to take back and have the discussion. Sheet piling comes at a considerable cost, and we don't own it. It's been hired. The hired cost, I'm not going to regular, it is quite substantial. So
I've just asked the Chief Executive if that recommendation is suitable and helpful for you to move forward with.
I'll need to have it read out for me. I'm sorry, I can't see it.
I'll read it out that His Worship the Mayor and the Chief Executive meet urgently with the Chair and Chief Executive of Horizons Regional Council to expedite a resolution to the outstanding issues of the Putarino landfill remediation. So I think it probably gives scope.
The only thing that I would recommend is that just the site name is the landfill, the former landfill on Putarino Road.
Okay. Historical landfill.
Yes, we'll advise exactly the wording for that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm comfortable with that resolution. Your worship.
That covers it.
Your worship, could we just confirm that?
So you're moving it?
Yes, yes.
And the seconded, Councillor Gordon. Are we happy to put this to a vote? Those in favour? Right. Those against? Carried. Anything further from this report? Councillor Duncan.
One question, it says at the top of that same box, an alternative river protection methodology has been requested by iwi and recommended by our consultants, adding $83,000 or $83,500 to the project. Is that since we've had those discussions? No, that was all.
That is the sheet piling.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Left that in for a long time to this report potentially could come out, but that was included in the contractors. So, if I may, Your Worship, and one last piece of information about the landfill remediation. For those of you who came to the site visit, we discussed it's been fantastic not to find any contamination in the landfill and in the excavated materials. Unfortunately, today in the last layer of excavation, we have found some contamination. The material is still suitable to go to our local landfill here. We did really well. We got almost all the way over the line, but just that last bit at the bottom.
I presume we couldn't dig a hole in the river back to do that.
I'd really prefer we don't.
So, Jesus, does that mean that it's was it further on back? They hadn't, as they got further back towards as they came further back.
Backhand
down. They found it.
Yeah.
Councillor Gordon.
So my question is, Jess, at the end of this process, we will have effectively removed the entire landfill. And so if we step back to the previous resolution, Horizons Regional Council are wanting us to leave sheet piling in to protect, well, to control what is a normal erosive process of a meandering riverbed.
Right. Thank you. That's the issue. One of the issues we'll raise. Okay, I'll move on. Thank you very much for your report.
Talk order, Your Worship. Recommendation 2 is more voted on.
I thought I had, but I'm quite happy to vote on it. Recommendation 2.
Amenities.
All right, carried. So recommendation 2, that elected members wish to review the developed design of the Taiapi amenities building. We had a mover, seconder, and discussion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item 12, the minutes from committees. 12.1. Would somebody please like to move that these be received as a block? Councillor Jura, are you so moving? Councillor Lambert seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Oh, Prime Minister announces.
Sorry, I don't know why that's coming.
Right. Now we move on to the recommendations from
Page
Sorry,
155.
could you please repeat who moved that and seconded it?
Councillor Hedera and then Councillor Lambert.
155.
155.
Recommendations, this is page 155. So the recommendations from committees. First one from the Turikina Community Committee, that the remaining funds in the Turikina Committee Small Projects Funds are carried forward. So this is only carry over 1 year. Councillor Panapo, you would like to recommend? Seconded by Councillor Carter. Any discussion? Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Recommendations from the Taihape Community Board meeting.
Sorry, I wish there were 2 recommendations.
Okay, what was the second one? Oh, yeah. The council approves or doesn't approve the carry forward of up to $61 for the Turikina Community Committee Small Project Fund. Isn't that really one and the same?
The first recommendation is council's receipt of their recommendation, and then the second recommendation is considering.
Right. Sorry, I thought I was dealing with them both at the same time. Would somebody like to move recommendation 2? Councillor Carter moving, Councillor Hero seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Moving on to Taihape. Recommendation 1, that council considers the below recommendation from the Taihape Community Board meeting to be considered as part of today's agenda. It's already there, I would have thought. That the Taihape Community Board request carried forward. Look, I think the fact that it's already on the agenda means that recommendation 1 has been dealt with effectively. And I think we could go straight to recommendation 2. Does staff have a problem with me doing that?
Or you could do, my suggestion is what you could do is move them as one. So remove recommendation and then 1 of recommendation 2, 3 or 4 at the same time.
All right, let's just do it in the way they've got it first. Would somebody like to move recommendation 1? Councillor Carter, Councillor Dilsham. Any vote against? Those in favour? Carried. No, that's dealt with. Now we have the OR options.
Question. Just a question around this. So recommendation 2 states the full amount of unspent funds. Recommendation 3 is the rules, I guess, around carrying forward 1 full year's allocation.
Yep.
And there were outstanding issues and reasonings for the previous community committees having not met. But has this committee met?
Yes, it has.
Continuously, so there shouldn't be any reason to. Well, I'd be able to move recommendation 3, that council approves the carry forward of, I don't know if that's 1 year's allocation, 5,379.
Okay. Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Carter, you wish to speak to the motion?
other than that motion sticks with our rules for committees and community boards being able to carry forward a budget of unspent money up to 1 year's allocation. So it's in line with our rules.
Any further speakers? Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, look, I'll speak in support of this one. It effectively gives the board $10,600 to spend this year, this coming financial year. They do have a number of projects in their infancy, but they don't really have any big ticket items that they need to pay bills on today or next week. And as with, I suspect that they've got a lot of things they'd like to do, but it's a matter of getting stuff done. So I'd support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Carter. Sorry, Councillor Duncan.
I'd like to speak in support of it also, but I'd also like to note that one of the reasons that all of these committees have struggled is because of COVID last year, and it was really disruptive. But I actually also agree that we should stick to the rules wherever possible, and that the $10,000 still allows them to go forward with the projects they've got in hand.
Okay, look, I'll put this to the vote. Unless nobody's speaking against it, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. And that takes us through to somebody moving the late item. Sorry, I agree. This is the late item, is the correction to the schedule of fees and charges for 2021-22, and recommendation one, that first of all, council agrees to accept it as a late item, which would be a correction of the fees and charges to be dealt with at this meeting under the provision of 9.12 of standing orders. I will so move. Looking for a second or two. Councillor Gordon is seconding. I don't think I need to speak to this. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Recommendation 2, that council agrees to correct an error, in the dog registration fees section of the schedule of fees and charges, page 20, to be updated to the fee is capped at $220 for owners with 5 or more working dogs. Also move. Seconded. Take me back. I was going to take that as stretch as a yes. So what? Councillor Korakawa. So Councillor Rakawa seconding. I don't think I need to speak to it. Any questions, speakers?
Just a correction to recommendation 1. It's got 25th of June meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'll put it to the vote. Aye. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Before we move to move into public excluded, is there anything, staff, that I haven't dealt with that you're worried about?
Councillor Duncan has a burning question.
It's not a question, I'm sorry, it's just a correction, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that on page 11, 111, Councillor Dalgetty should be added to that attendance of that meeting, which was the audit and risk.
Were you're on audit and risk as a member, or is it?
No, she was in attendance.
Just as an attendance. Staff, can you take the note of that, please?
Yeah.
I think we can just do that as a member.
Point of order, we just received these minutes. They're still unconfirmed and they get confirmed at the next audit and risk meeting.
Correct.
So yeah, the only amendment that can be done is at that audit and risk meeting.
So that's why I've just noted it. Right, would somebody like to move that we move into public excluded? Councillor Carter moving for the reasons given in the report. Councillor Parnell for seconding. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. You need to change your.
Your worship, can we take a short break?